So we'll start outside in, and no better than Mintel to talk about that. So we have Edward Bergen from Mintel. Edward is a senior analyst from Mintel. He's been studying and identifying FMCG trends worldwide. And prior to working for Mintel, Edward was working for two of UK's biggest retailers, which is Tesco and Morrisons. Edward, over to you.
Brilliant. Good morning, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. So, as I said, I'm Edward Bergen. I want to take you through what Mintel view as our sort of big ticket trends for the next year, but also beyond that. So I'm just going to hopefully share my screen, and it will all share nicely, hopefully. And I'll get this looking pretty on your screens if I'm able to. Give me 1 second. So for those that haven't really worked with Mintel before, Mintel are one of the largest market intelligence agencies in the world, and we are kind of our big ethos at our organization is to understand what consumers want and why. So that's what I'm going to take you through today. What we've been able to do over the past 12 months, especially, is try and think really globally about how the behaviors of the past year, and it's been a tough one, have changed how consumers interact with the food and drink industry. And we're going to think globally, but also we have some data from your region. I wish we had for the UAE. We've got some Saudi Arabian data, but also I'm going to give you a bit more of a global view as well, because it's really relevant to see how different markets are reacting to this, and also your big exporters. So it's always something interesting to find out. So I'm going to kick off. And the first thing is just to understand what have been the key changes that we've seen over the course of the pandemic from a consumer behavior point of view. Now, it's been a really tough time. A lot of consumers have felt that they haven't been in control of many of their kind of really crucial parts of their day, parts of the year. They've been out of control. And food and drink and those meal occasions have actually been one of the only places in their week, in their day, that they can control. So they've looked to food and drink to really provide them with that positivity that they need, to just get them through the day, to provide them with comfort and joy and beyond. That's the first thing. We've also seen a growing concern around health and well-being. It's been a big topic forever, health and well-being, but mostly around how we react to the virus if, God forbid, we pick it up. So we've seen this growth of claims around immunity, around long-term health. We've seen consumers becoming more concerned about weight and the fact that if you're more obese, you're more susceptible to the pandemic. So it's actually presented, and I don't really like to use the word capitalized, or opportunities for the market, but ways to help food and drink brands communicate with consumers and say, we've got your back. We're here to help you with new products, new claims, and innovation in this area around immunity. But I'll get into more detail shortly. And the last one has been the idea of community. Obviously, different regions, you've got larger faith groups in different countries and so on, where community is so important. But globally, we're seeing consumers who've been stuck and isolated at home. They may not have been able to go to their schools, their places of worship, and so on. And they've really needed that community to just help them get through the day and make them feel part of something. And I'll give more detail shortly. So I'll speak for about another 15, 20 minutes. And then we've got the panel later on. So let's start with the first trend. It's called Feed the Mind. I'll just give you a summary of each trend here. The idea that, yes, we've been focused on physical health for a very long time, and actually mental health and how we feel has become more and more important to the consumer. But are brands reacting is the big question, and we'll get into that. We've got another trend called quality redefined. Now, in previous recessions and times of economic struggle, consumers have looked to, economy ranges, cheap ranges, budget products to sort of service their lower budgets to basically fill their fridges and pantries. But now consumers actually, they're quite willing to spend more as long as they see value. And there's lots of opportunities to give consumers that value, whether it be new levels of convenience, which we've already mentioned today, whether it be through sustainability, through experiences. We're going to get into that as well. This idea that quality has been redefined and there's lots more spaces to define quality for the consumer. And lastly, we're going to talk about the community, how to talk to the consumer in their own language, especially when we've seen tech and internet and e-commerce and loads of new ways to communicate. Are we keeping up, and how do we keep up? Mintel, the way we build our trends, we think about them in many different drivers, consumer drivers. And we watch observations all over the world, and we put them under these different pillars that you can see, these drivers on screen, whether it be well-being or wellness, whether it be rights and ethics, value, identity, tech. All of these drivers help us to build what those big trends are. So you're welcome to get in touch with us afterwards. Get in touch with me or my colleagues at Mintel, and you'll be able to get some more idea of what are we saying from a consumer point of view in all industries as well by ask for these trends too. But let's go, because we haven't got too long. So the first trend is called Feed the Mind, and this is all about balancing physical and mental health. What we see, especially from the Middle East, actually even more than Europe and the rest of the world, there's a huge concern around lifestyle diseases, and a huge concern around things like obesity, diabetes, and so on. More than half that actually they really plan to eat a better diet when it comes to these diseases going forward. We've got 2/3 in South Africa. We've got similar numbers in Saudi Arabia and so on, that saying that actually immune boosting foods have been really important. And what's specifically important is recognizing some of the new ingredients and what they can do for the consumer, going beyond fiber and protein and looking at ingredients like zinc or magnesium as functional ingredients that can help us with our immunity and our health. And also the idea of weight has been a big concern. So actually how weight needs to be focused. We need to look at how big we are and look to lose weight and become healthier. When we look at though health and wellness, the topic of mental health is coming up more and more for all sorts of reasons, whether it be stresses, whether it be just that actually mental health was always a big deal, but we didn't really think about it. We kind of just thought consumers needed to get on with their day, and actually it's a real concern. And we need to address it better as an industry. You just look here, 1/3 of adults in Saudi Arabia, they're really worried about the stress of them and their families. But when we look at food and drink innovation in EMEA, in Europe and Middle East, in terms of launches, there's virtually no launches at all that reference things like brain and nervous system health or stress or sleep. The claims, they're so niche and tiny that you could call this a huge white space opportunity, but also we just need to do better. So that's what this trend is really talking about. But what have consumers been doing? So, for example, I am a huge coffee fan. I drink a lot of coffee and I love it. And just before the pandemic, I got myself a really funky manual coffee machine where I make my little latte art hearts and so on. But this idea of finding a ritual or a routine in your day that just makes you feel comfortable, it's become a big thing. We've seen coffee pot sales in Italy really grow over the past 12 months. We've seen consumers cooking and baking more over the past 12 months. We've seen consumers drinking. When they are drinking, they've swapped out cheap and cheerful beer for higher end spirits and new products like that in the alcohol space, or going alcohol free but premium. So it's actually consumers looking for like more moments of just relaxation in their day. When we look at launches, we are starting to see some new ingredients and claims appearing on pack that help consumers to learn about what those functional ingredients can do. Whether it's this Pick and Pay product in South Africa or whether it's this cereal product in the UK, they're referencing, lots of vitamins and minerals. It almost becomes a supplement here. And then this product talks about zinc and maca root and talk about linking it to cognitive function and claiming that on pack. Cereal going beyond fiber and grains and really telling the consumer there are new opportunities in this industry. But it's not just functional ingredients that is a way of capturing consumer and affecting their mood and understanding them emotionally. You can also use multisensory in different ways. If we talked about multisensory for a few years at Mintel, such as putting popping candy in chocolate, that you get that sort of sensory experience, you really feel it. But we're seeing new ways to communicate, sensory claims now, such as adding an ethical claim on the front of pack when it's a product that talks about sustainability, like this product that talks about hungry for change. We've got over here using ASMR, autonomy sensory meridian response, which is the idea of advertising and communication through sound. And you often hear adverts where they whisper loudly into the microphone to advertise the product. We've got products like this one that's talking about the bubbly texture. I've seen Ritz cracker, the brand Ritz cracker, doing advertising where you hear the crunch of the cracker. We've got this alcohol-free cocktail product that's boosting the aroma and the scent to really bring that premium alcohol, even though it's non-alcohol, experience to the product. We're also, that idea of ethical, we're seeing more claims related to climate anxiety, and the consumers are looking for more explanation about each and every brand and what they're doing to give back to the planet. So we are going to see, after the pandemic subsides, this change from COVID anxiety to climate anxiety. So we're seeing things like carbon neutral and footprint claims appearing. We've got claims like this one in Germany called the Nutri-Score, which not only references the health nutrition of the product itself, but also how it actually impacts the planet and the planet's health. So there's new opportunities again here to target a consumer. So that's our first trend. You're welcome to get in touch, and we've got more and more to say on the topics. So get in touch afterwards, but I'm going to jump into trend number 2. This one's called quality redefined. That actually we can still sell premium to the consumer, even during an economic crisis or struggle. And there's lots of different ways to communicate value to the consumer in this way. So what are we seeing when we look across the world in terms of data? Well, there's this big stat: I intend to make more home cooked meals. Look at the numbers. When also we look at young consumers, it's even bigger, because young people have become independent before than ever before because of this pandemic. So there's this whole host of new occasions in the working week that you can target consumers with at-home consumption. We also don't expect this to decline back to pre-pandemic levels. We actually expect this to stay strong over the next few years because of the growth in e-commerce, online shopping, meaning bigger shops, consumers planning meals, and also consumers, they're going to be sitting at home and working from home in the future because companies are going to want to, they've realized it can be cheaper than bringing all your staff back into the office. So what does that mean when it comes to innovation? We're finding that launches are coming in between this normal grocery ready meals, prepared meals and space that exist, and this idea of restaurant and food service and takeaways. There's this lovely in between space that lots of brands are exploring, whether it be food tourism with this Woolworths supermarket South Africa nasi goreng meal kit that we're seeing. And Woolworths have launched this whole host of food tourism global menu products and meal kits over the past year to provide that semi-scratch opportunity for consumers. It's not scratch cooking, it's not a ready meal, it's somewhere in the middle. You've got Michelin star chefs working with this brand in the US called Goldbelly, providing kits for consumers to really produce something beautiful and food service level at home. Or we've got a brand like Bowl who pivoted. They used to be very much a lunchtime food company, and they've pivoted their brand to target the evening occasion with these Bowl centerpieces. They're all plant-based and vegetarian and vegan, but the idea is that it's like a food service style product that you can have for your meal. So really, you know, seeing brands innovate around this in between, this fake away space. And just a very quick example from Pringles in Asia, they've launched this brilliant communication on a range called Passport Flavors. Look, we can't travel the world right now, so what's the next best thing? We can taste the world instead. And they've used Passport Flavors, really talking about tourism and, you know, linking it to certain cities around the world and what the famous flavor is. And I love the way they've communicated. Look, the flavors aren't dramatically new, but you can innovate around communications as well. And then in terms of value, with values, and from an ethical point of view, you know, consumers who don't have as much money in their weekly budget, that doesn't mean they don't deserve to buy sustainable products. There's an expectation that actually we need to service everyone with ethical, sustainable innovation. And that's why we're seeing Lidl, you know, discounter Lidl, really go after this ethic space with this chocolate product, Way to Go. And we see here, you know, in terms of healthy food as well, that actually consumers still think that healthy food is too expensive. So we need to start seeing better value across, you know, these added benefits, these added needs, you know, ranges for consumers. Going forward as well, how do we think about adding value, offering experiences to consumers, such as this sort of hands-free shopping cart, you know, bringing that experience to them? That's a way to bring value. Or using your sort of platforms to communicate your quality, like this brand Dengo, who did a live stream project in Brazil. There's lots and lots of ways to show consumers that you're great quality. Okay. Into the last topic, and I'm okay for 2 more minutes, and then we're going to be finished. So this is called United by Food, and it's all about bringing consumers together as a community. Just look at that stat. It's massive. 81% of consumers say it's important for them to feel part of a community. And I want to give a very quick anecdote here. So my mother is a huge Sainsbury's shopper, Sainsbury's supermarket shopper. And she's also done lots of volunteering for people during the pandemic, doing their shopping for them. She got a VIP letter from Sainsbury's from their loyalty scheme saying that she was the #1 shopper for Mediterranean roasted vegetables that go in the oven. It's like a ready prepared product. And then she got a load of coupons to buy more of that product. This was like a #1 shopper in her region. What a great way to talk to your consumers and show them that you care and make them feel part of it. But we're seeing brands as well do a lot more of this kind of limited edition style products like Magnum, who you give them this ice cream kit and let you know, add your own toppings at home. Or Anton Berg, who start personalizing flavors with this kind of cocoa and chocolate scale in terms of flavor. A great way to build dialogue among consumers. And then we've already heard mention of social media and its impact on groceries and selling. And we're seeing a lot more platforms selling direct to consumers, whether it be swiping up on Instagram from food service or groceries or brands, buying directly, or even using WhatsApp as a means to sell. So they get that kind of personal connection, but also you're speaking the consumer's language. That's how they already communicate with their friends. So why not communicate that way with brands like this brand Dobem, who sell directly through WhatsApp? Even the WhatsApp COO is talking about, you know, we can be a storefront for consumers. Lastly is thinking differently, thinking about tech, that actually consumers are buying a whole host of new appliances, especially in the pandemic, like this electric pressure cooker, the Instant Pot, a big brand coming out of the US and they've launched globally. But when you look at innovation, there's virtually 0 products around the world that is referencing this appliance, or even Instant Pots in general, or pressure cookers in general. You've still got oven ready and microwavable. So it's just pivoting innovation to say, you can use our brand with your new appliance, or thinking about innovation specifically for the appliance. And then you've got this whole community of users already that exist that will then buy from that range. So there's new ways to think about tech. And the last couple of examples, this is a social commerce website in China called Pinduoduo, where consumers can actually come together, groups of friends, and buy in bulk instead of buying alone to get discounts. So new ways to think about purchasing as a community. So just to finish, and then I'll come back for questions later as well. The first thing is think about mental health as important as physical health. Consumers really are worried about the health of the mental health of their family and so on. They want brands and retailers to think and to be more empathetic to them and target them with functional ingredients, but also with communications that relate to how they're feeling, not just their physical. Quality Redefined is all about giving consumers value. That doesn't mean you need to give them something cheap. It means that you need to find the need that mean they know it's worth paying more for it. And they're okay with that, whether it be sustainability or new convenience. It's all a great opportunity to target consumers. And lastly, looking across tech, across social e-commerce, using limited edition, using quite playful innovation to get consumers talking and make them feel part of something. So there's a whole range of ways that you can communicate with consumers differently and make them feel like they're part of your community as well. But we're going to see sustainability come back into fashion. Right now, we're at the survival stage. This is going to be a big, big trend going forward. So this is something you should continue to think about in all of your innovation. And then lastly, don't forget that consumers are traditional. They love flavor. They love taste of their traditional products. We're always going to want pizza. We're always going to want chocolate and coffee. So yes, innovate, but always remember that consumers still like familiarities. So it's finding that balance. But there's always going to be pizza, and that always puts a smile on people's faces. So thank you very much for listening. And I look forward to handing over to our next speaker.